Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be learning how to solo on the tune Autumn Leaves. First I'm going to take a quick solo over one chorus of the form, then we're going to take a look at the chord progression and do a harmonic analysis so that we really understand each of the chords in the progression and understand how to think over them. And then finally we're going to work out some of the stuff that we learn in the harmonic analysis over the guitar fretboard. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so let's jump right into our analysis here. So, this is a really fun tune to play on. Even just doing that little chorus right there is really fun. So, this chord progression is so important for you to learn how to navigate because of the movement that we're going to see here in this progression. So, the tune is considered to be in the key of G minor, but G minor is the relative minor of the key of B flat major. So there's going to be some parts that I think are better to approach from the key of B flat major, and then there's going to be some parts that are better to approach from the key of G minor. And even though major keys and minor keys are relative to each other, there is a bit of a difference when we are thinking in the minor key, and you're going to figure that out in a second. So let's take a look first at the A section here. So we got C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, and E flat major 7. So this part here in the top, we're going to think of more of the key of B flat major because, well, we haven't even seen a G minor chord yet in those first 4 bars. So we got C minor 7, and right here you got all of the chords in the key of B flat major listed out. So we're going to have C minor 7, which is the 2 chord in the key. And then we're going to have F7, which is the 5 chord in the key. And then we're going to have B flat major 7, which is the 1 chord. And then we're going to have E flat major 7, which is the 4 chord. So we have a 2, 5, 1, 4 progression on the top. So this is a very common progression, especially this first part here, the 2-5-1. 2-5-1 is just like the bread and butter of jazz, really, and lots of other popular music, but especially jazz. 2-5-1 is just spammed all over the place in all kinds of songs. And then we're going to now take a look at this bottom part here. We're going to think of this more from the relative minor perspective of G minor. So the way that you figure out, by the way, what the relative minor of any key is you just go, I'm going to fill in the rest of these numbers here. You just go to the 6th chord or the 6th scale degree. So that 6 is always going to be the relative minor of the major key that you're in. But here's the thing. When we start thinking from the minor key perspective, now we don't think of that chord as the 6th chord anymore. Now we think of that as a minor 1 chord instead. So if we take a look at the chords in the key of G minor, which are really just the same ones that are in the key of B flat, but we're reordering stuff. We have G minor 7's the 1 chord. Then we have A half diminished 7 is the 2 chord. And then we have B flat major 7, which is going to be the flat 3 chord. When we do this analysis, by the way, we always do it sort of in comparison to a major scale. I don't want to get too off topic with that, but if we had a G major scale instead of G minor, well, it'd be some sort of B chord. So we're thinking, okay, there's a B flat, so it's a flat 3 in comparison to a major key. That's typically the way that I like to approach it, and a lot of other people do as well. Then we're going to have a minor 4 chord, C minor 7. We're going to have a minor 5 chord, D minor 7. We're going to talk more about that later because we're actually going to change that. Then we're going to have a flat 6 chord, E flat major 7, and then flat 7, F7. So, right here, I just said D minor was the 5 chord, but then why is this D7 here? So, in minor keys, for us to tell our ears that this G minor is the new 1 chord, is sort of our tonal center of what's going on, it's very, very common to actually just change the 5 chord sort of artificially into a dominant chord. So a D minor 7 would have the notes D, F, A, and C, but instead we turn that F into an F sharp, and that actually makes it into a D7 chord. So let me erase that right now. So we're going to actually think of this D7 chord here as the 5 chord in the key of G minor. So this A half diminished is going to be the 2 chord. Then we have a 5, and then we have a 1 in the key of G minor. And this top line, we're thinking of it again in B flat major. So what we're doing here, by the way, this is what I like to call harmonic generalization. So we want to be able to take a look at the different sections of the chord progression and just sort of assign a key to them too. So even if we didn't play each of these chords as sort of separate things, which we're going to learn how to do in a bit, we can actually sit here and say, okay, well, over this whole section, I can just play B flat major scale. And over this whole section, I can play G minor scale, some sort of G minor scale. So there's actually 3 different minor scales. We're not going to get super into that right now, but regardless, that's sort of the whole point of this. We want to just figure out what key each section's in. So the cool thing about this, guys, is that we pretty much finished the whole analysis of the tune because other parts are just repeated. So then when the bridge starts the tune, well, it's just the same thing again. This 2, 5, 1 in the key of G minor. And then the next 4 bars are the exact same thing again. They're the 2, 5, 1, 4 in the key of B flat major, right? So there's a lot of stuff that gets repeated in this tune, and that's one of the reasons why it's so cool to learn, because once you learn basically 8 bars, you got the rest of the tune. Now, stuff's going to get a little bit complicated here in the C section. So in the C section, we can clearly see, all right, well, we got this 2, 5 again. It's sort of tricky here because this looks just like over here. But we're going to have this 2, 5, A half diminished D7, and then it actually does go to G minor, but then look, we have this other chord right after it, G flat 7. And then we also have this F minor 7, E7. What's going on there? Well, let's talk about this now. So, remember how I just said that 2, 5, 1 is sort of the bread and butter jazz, right? Well, 2 5s can actually be chained together, and that's sort of what's happening here. So if G minor was going to be the 2 chord in a progression, it would actually be in the key of F. So G minor 7, C7, F major 7. So that would actually be a 2-5-1 in the key of F major. But wait a second. Okay, well, there's no F major there, so let's get rid of that again. We'll talk about that in a second. And there's also no C7. Now, let's talk about that C7 for a second and that G flat 7. C7 and G flat 7, believe it or not, are actually substitutes for each other. And this comes from a concept called tritone substitution. So the idea is that for any dominant chord, especially when you're doing a 2-5 or 2-5-1, you can actually substitute that dominant chord for another chord a tritone away. So the distance between C to G flat is actually a tritone, or an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, depending on what way you want to think about it. Now, this might be going over your head a little bit. I will do a separate video on this idea of tritone substitution. But essentially, this whole concept right here, in this whole part of the chord progression, really amounts to the same thing as just a 2-5. This G minor 7 is G flat 7. It's like a 2-5 that's going to resolve to this F minor. Now, I just said that you can chain 2 5s together. So normally this G minor 7 and C7 would resolve to a F major 7. But really it doesn't have to. It can resolve to any sort of F chord, actually. It can resolve to an F minor 7 instead. The idea is really that C7 is just going to take us to some sort of F chord. So, with that being said, any minor chord can also be sort of the start of another 2-5. So in this case, we're actually doing that same thing. It's like if we had G minor 7, C7, and then F minor 7 to actually B flat 7. Again, wait a second, Adam. It doesn't say B flat 7 there, though. It says E7. There goes that nasty little tritone substitution trick again. So B flat 7 can be swapped out for E7. Again, that's another tritone sub for short. So B flat and E, those two notes are a tritone away. So those two chords, B flat 7, E flat 7, are also a tritone away from each other. So essentially, what this whole thing amounts to right here is a 2-5 chain. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's like 2-5 in F. So I'm going to write the key that the 2-5's in on top. And then a 2-5 in E flat major, actually. So that's pretty much it. It's a chain of 2-5s. So it's a really, really cool thing because once you start to learn how to navigate those chains of 2-5s, you'll see they create a lot of harmonic momentum. Now, we get to the next part here. Wait a second. The 2-5 never really resolves because this is supposed to be a 2-5 in the key of E flat major, right? So we would think that right after this bar, we would go to an E flat major 7 chord. Now, I will say a lot of times when people play this tune, they actually do play the E flat major 7 chord there. But this is actually the more common way that it's played is you don't necessarily go straight to that E flat major 7 chord. Instead, sort of deceptively, we just go to another 2-5 to the key of G minor. So That's the thing, guys. I know that this can be quite confusing, but that's one of the reasons why it's important to take a look at songs like this, especially if you want to get really, really good at navigating chord progressions and improvising, is because it teaches us how to sort of think of chord progressions in different sections that are sort of independent from each other, but also do work together. So, at the end of the day, really, what this whole tune is we have 2 5 1 6, or sorry, 2 5 1 4, and then just 2 5 1 to the relative minor. 2 5 1 4 in a major key, and then 2 5 1 to the relative minor, and then just right at the end there's a chain of 2 5s. So there's this 2 5 chain from the key of F to E flat that never really resolves, actually. It just never resolves. So, does that make sense a little bit? If it doesn't make sense, go back, watch this again, and also, if it doesn't make sense, what you should do is learn all of the different diatonic chords in each key. That is super duper important for you guys to know. Like, seriously, you are not going to be able to navigate any progression that you want to if you don't know what chords you can find in every key, because you're just not going to be able to see, oh, okay, these chords here are in the key of B flat, these chords are in the key of G minor. It's just going to seem like a giant mishmash of stuff, and that's not what we want. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start working out some of this stuff on the neck. So, first chord that we had was that C minor chord. Now, we need to actually figure out the arpeggios that go with this chord so that we can actually play them on the guitar. So, in the key, so for C minor 7, that's going to have the notes C, E flat, G, and B flat in it. So, really, we're just going to do this on a very small area of the fretboard for right now. But you should know the notes on the fretboard really well so that you can start to work out these arpeggios every possible place that you can. So if I play this arpeggio, it's going to sound like this. That's our C minor 7. Then we're going to need an F7. So that's going to have the notes F, A, C, and E flat in it. So right here, now we have another F7. So we had C minor 7 first, and then F7. Actually, if you notice, those are the exact same shape on the guitar fretboard, but we just move them over move them over by one string, actually. Just move the shape over. So the B flat major 7 is going to have B flat, D, F, and A. So B flat, D, F, A. So it looks like this, and we're going to play it here. And then we need to find E flat major 7. So that one's going to be E flat, G, B flat, and D. And again, also, goes without saying, you should know how to spell these chords out as well, so that you're not just sort of copying exactly what I'm doing. You can work it out for yourself when you go to explore all these arpeggios on the fretboard. So here's E flat major 7. Then A half diminished is going to be A, C, E flat, and G. And a half diminished, by the way, you probably know this, but it's also known as minor 7 flat 5. So there's our minor 7 flat 5, half diminished, A half diminished. And then we have a D7. So it's going to be D, F sharp, A, and C. It says G flat there, but it's an F sharp. F sharp, G flat are the exact same note. So there's your D7. And then we're going to have G minor 7. G, B flat, D, and F right here. So there we go. We had C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A half diminished, D7, and G minor 7. So you can actually practice. That's going to be your first thing you're going to want to do, is actually just practice playing a solo with only those arpeggios that we just worked out. Let's hear what that would sound like really quick. So you can see just right there, I just went through the first 8 bars, and that actually sounds pretty good, right? It's not going to sound bad. We're playing the notes that are in the chords. That is one of the most important things you need to be able to do to really, really nail a chord progression, is to be able to just play those arpeggio notes. Now, actually, let's go also over to work out some of the other arpeggios from the end in this section here, where we had the chain of tritone substitution, those 2 5s right here. So we're going to work at G minor 7, G flat 7, F minor 7, and E flat 7, just so that you can have some arpeggio shapes for that section. So we are going to have, well, there's a G minor 7 right there. Let me give you a different place you can play this G minor 7. So I'm going to put it up an octave here. This is a really nice, simple and easy minor arpeggio shape right here. And then our G flat 7, you're going to see this is really cool actually. So the B flat and F are going to stay the same, and D is going to move down a fret, and G is going to move down a fret. Actually, sorry. So the F does move down to E. I don't know why I said that. So we got G flat 7 right here. Technically, if we're being real sticklers, that E would be called F flat, but let's just leave it like that as E. So actually, the B flat stays right there. So there's one common note from G minor 7 to G flat 7. And then we're going to go to F minor 7, which you can see is the exact same shape from G minor 7, just down 2 frets. So there's our F minor 7. And then we're going to go to E7. So we're going to have E. We would call this G sharp technically, and then this is going to be a D. So E, G sharp, B, D. That's going to be your E7. So that sequence we just worked out is like this. So now we got that section ironed out. So basically you have some arpeggio shapes to be able to play over this whole entire tune. Now, before I let you go, I think it's really important that we take a look at just the general key centers of the tune. So we need to find the B flat major scale and just work it out over the fretboard. So the notes in the B flat major scale are going to be B flat. Let's put a B flat there. C, D, E flat, F, G, and A. So those are the 7 notes that are in a B flat major scale. B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. So this is a little mini position here that you can play of that scale. Also, let's work out how it would look on one string. So actually, a good place to put this is going to be on the 5th string, because the first fret of the 5th string is a B flat note. So we got B flat, then we got C, and then we got D, and then we have E flat, and then F. Sorry, F is going to be right here. And then we have G, and we have A, and then another B flat. So that's how the major scale looks out laid across one string. Super duper important for you to memorize that pattern too. You see how you have a whole step from B flat to C? There's a fret in between. From C to D, there's a fret in between. From D to E flat, there's no fret in between. They're right next to each other. E flat to F is a whole step, F to G is a whole step, and G to A is a whole step. So you should really, really know how to lay this out all over the fretboard just by knowing these notes: B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, and B flat. By the way, if you don't know the fretboard super well yet, I have a PDF available for download for totally free, how to memorize every note on the fretboard. Check the link in the description down below for a copy of that PDF. So once you sort of work this out, you will have just right here, even if we don't do anything else, right here we can solo over basically all of the tune with it. You can't really solo over the part that we're just working out, that chain of 2 5-1s with this B flat major scale, because there's going to be some notes that are going to clash. But that's what the arpeggios are for. No matter what, even if you can't figure out like a scale that works over a part of a tune that you're soloing on, well, you just play the arpeggios and you're going to be good no matter what, honestly. So let's play this really quick. Let's play right here this 5th string scale that we wrote out. So that's our B flat major scale. Learn that, memorize that one more time. And then here's this little mini position pattern here, starting on the 8th fret of the D string. And there can be lots more places. You can play this all over the guitar. But I'm not going to write it out for you. That's going to be part of your job after watching this video. Go get that PDF, learn the notes on the fretboard, and then figure out just those 7 notes. It's not rocket science. Figure out where B flat is, C, D, E flat, F, G, and A, and work it out all over the guitar fretboard. Be a musician. The more that you explore the guitar, the better you're going to get. And the more that you kind of want to have stuff, you know, just, oh, it's going to be a pattern and I just use this one thing and play over the whole entire song, that's not going to get you super far. It can get you started and that's very nice, but it's not going to get you super far. So really, really dig in as much depth as you can with this when you go ahead and start working out, okay? So I hope that this helped a little bit to solo better over the tune Autumn Leaves. You should basically have taken away from this whole entire video, okay, let's look at the chord progression. Let's figure out what key each of the parts is in. The way that we figure out what key each of the parts is in is by, well, knowing the chords that are in different keys, seeing which ones fit, and then working out arpeggios to all those chords. That's really going to be the key, guys. If you work out arpeggios to the whole entire song, then you're just going to use those arpeggios to solo, and then you can use the general key as well. So until next time, listen, learn, and jam.